Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Tonight on Our News, new details about the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine in the Bahamas. The AG responds to a U.S. State Department report, plus nurses meet with the Prime Minister. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, though it's still being finalized, we now have an idea of what the government's COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan will look like. During a press conference today, the National COVID-19 Vaccine Committee explained who will be priority, which islands expect to be first, and how the vaccine will be transported to the Family Islands. Kyle Joaquin has the breakdown.
Now, health officials say the vaccine rollout plan is still being finalized, but those living on your Providence, Grand Bahama, as well as Bimini can expect to be among the first to get it. As the wait continues for the first 100,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is expected to be in the country between the end of February and the end of the second quarter of this year, the vaccine rollout plan has finally been released to the public. There are 3 areas of priority. Del Regis explains.
Group 1 will consist of healthcare workers, uniform branches, and elder care providers. Group 2 include persons with disabilities, persons living in congregate settings, critical workers in high-risk settings, other essential service workers, persons with comorbidities and underlying conditions, as well as sea, air, and ground personnel.
Everyone else will be considered as a part of Group 3. Vaccines will be transported to the Family Islands by air in portable coolers. A 6-week period is expected for the rollout.
1 to 4, New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Bimini. 2 to 5, Abaco, the Abaco Keys, and Exuma. 4 to 6, Andros, the Berry Islands, and Eleuthera.
The remainder of the Family Islands will be covered during the 6-week period. When asked if all 100,000 doses will come at one time, Del Regis said the health team does not know, but is hoping it comes in 2 deliveries. The AstraZeneca vaccine, which is DNA-based, has an efficacy rate of around 70% compared to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, which have efficacy rates upwards of 94%. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Pearl McMillan says health officials are aiming to have 80% of the population vaccinated eventually.
We will begin vaccinating along the priority groups that were mentioned, and certainly as we get additional access to vaccines, we anticipate that we will vaccinate up to about 80% of our population.
According to Del Regis, the vaccine will be administered at accessible locations, and there will be a 4-step process which includes registration, vaccination, monitoring for side effects, and certification. Anyone receiving the vaccine will get a vaccination certificate. Del Regis explained that while some countries may require proof of vaccination in the future, local health officials have not recommended it to the Bahamas government.
In the case of a 2-dose vaccine, certificates will be received following the 2nd dose.
Del Regis says the vaccines will be free of charge to eligible adults and will not be mandatory. The AstraZeneca vaccine has been tested in people ages 18 to 65 and has not yet been approved for use in children. The government is also working to secure additional approved vaccines, and health officials say the Bahamas has the capacity to store the vaccine at a secure site. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And Speaker of the House of Assembly, Halson Moultrie, has tendered his resignation from the Free National Movement with immediate effect. Moultrie confirming his resignation moments ago and says while he will be an independent MP, he still plans on serving as Speaker of the House of Assembly. In his letter to the F&M Secretary General, Moultrie gave no reason for his departure from the party. Our News is following this story, and we'll have more in tomorrow's newscast. Well, Attorney General Carl Bethel responding to a recently released U.S. Department of State report highlighting the lack of transparency and perceived corruption in government procurement in the Bahamas. The AG suggesting today that those corruption claims may have been made by Americans who are unhappy about having not received government contracts. Jasmine Brown reports.
The Attorney General did not hold back as he responded to a Nassau Guardian article which revealed the U.S. State Department in its 2020 investment climate statement on the Bahamas highlighted a lack of transparency and perceived corruption in the procurement process.
I see in the paper today a United States report about perceived corruption in procurement. Persons who American companies who may have been bidding on certain contracts are unhappy with the result. And I want to say this straight up, that if anybody has any complaint of perceived any evidence of actual or potential corruption, they need only to forward that to the Director of Public Prosecutions of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Bethel said he has no doubt that those complaints will be thoroughly investigated.
Any such allegations will be thoroughly and properly and independently investigated under his direction.
The U.S. opined that the Bahamian government does not have modern procurement legislation, and companies have complained the tender process for public contracts is not consistent and that it is difficult to obtain information on the status of bids. According to the report, U.S. firms have identified corruption as an obstacle to foreign direct investment and have reported perceived corruption in government procurement and in the FDI approvals process.
It's easy for someone to say, I perceive something because I didn't get it. But if there is the slightest shred of evidence, I urge anybody, whether they be Bahamian or American, I think the report was relating to some American companies claiming they perceived corruption. Well, if there's the slightest shred of any such information, you are invited to provide the same to the Director of Public Prosecutions.
The State Department pointed to the Minnis administration's draft Public Procurement Bill 2020, which was tabled in Parliament last June along with the 2020-2021 budget. The bill seeks to establish a public procurement board, a digital procurement platform, and an electronic vendor registry to modernize existing procurement systems with international best practices. Bethel did not provide an update on that legislation. However, the Ministry of Finance indicated in its recent fiscal snapshot that the bill is slated for debate during Q3 of the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Nurses moving their protests to the office of the Prime Minister, resulting in the union's leadership meeting with Dr. Hubert Minnis. But as Berthany McDermott tells us, it didn't come without a fight.
We were very disappointed in the Prime Minister of this Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Bahamian people, this is how you're going to be treated. You're no better than none of us, all right? Remember that. You are no better than none of us. The day how they treat us here today, that is the way how you're going to be treated. And this government must go.
That was the candid response from Nurses Union President Amantia Williams after she was informed that just the union president would be allowed in the office of the Prime Minister to meet with the PM Secretary. Dozens of nurses gathered outside the office on West Bay Street after 8 a.m. Thursday to request a meeting with the Prime Minister. According to Williams, when they arrived, there were a few officers in sight, but as time went on, more showed up with barricades. Eventually, a senior officer approached the union leader, resulting in this exchange.
We want a date and we want the nurses to sign the book and to say that they're requesting to see that their dates also.
You as the head of the nurses
union? No. They can speak for themselves. They want to, if they request, I can't take them away.
All right, so let me tell you what you
No.
We will consult.
Okay.
We will come back to you in short order.
That officer later informed the union that only the union president would be allowed inside to meet with the secretary. That response wasn't well received.
Dr. Minnis, who is a doctor who has worked alongside of us, who we have voted for to put him in Parliament, he should be just ashamed of himself. I am sad to be a nurse in the country of the Bahamas at this time.
And after gathering outside the office of the Prime Minister for more than an hour, nurses were instructed to leave the premises. This as only the union president was allowed to come inside.
See that? Make sure you get the P on.
About 15 minutes later, the message changed. Williams and her Secretary General were allowed in.
The conversation is that the Prime Minister will see us. So, and we're going to meet him at Cabinet. right now.
This is the third day the nurses' union has protested, demanding more than $300,000 reportedly owed to them for overtime hours worked during the COVID-19 pandemic and Hurricane Dorian. In Parliament, Health Minister Renwood Wells asserted the nurses at PMH were paid overtime. Here's how Williams responded to that.
Wells should have sit down in his seat and keep small.
Reporting for Our News,
Well, following that meeting with the Prime Minister, the Nurses Union president says Dr. Minnis gave his word that nurses will be paid as early as this month, even if that means he won't receive a salary. While noting this isn't the first time he gave them his word, Williams says she feels this time is different, considering the country will soon be distributing the COVID-19 vaccine, which she says can only be administered with the help of the Department of Health nurses. The news, she says, comes as a breath of fresh air for union members. In other news, a 27-year-old man was arraigned in the magistrate's court today in connection with the country's third murder for the year. Cecil Roll appearing before Magistrate Samuel McKinney, charged with the murder of DeAndre Thompson. According to police, Thompson was shot shortly after 8 p.m. on January 3rd on Sapodilla and Willow Tree Street in Pinewood Gardens. Roll was not required to enter a plea and was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until April 1st, when he will return to court for the presentation of a voluntary bill of indictment. And 2 Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute employees have been fired for stealing. However, BTVI is tonight disputing reports of a theft ring involving a senior executive at the tertiary institution. In a statement today, BTVI's board of directors said while 2 employees have been terminated for theft, there has been no evidence to say that there was a ring. The board says independent investigations reveal that allegations of impropriety involving a senior executive are totally without merit, and the executive was fully exonerated. Its statement says the board is satisfied that the investigation was thorough and conducted without bias. It was another chilly night last night. Greg Thompson is in the weather studio with tonight's outlook.
Thanks, Christina. Our first look at weather is brought to you tonight by Ports International for all your medical supplies and equipment needs. As promised, we had a crisp evening this morning. Temperatures managed to get into the low 50s here in the capital, upper 40s across Grand Bahama. Right now we're still in the 60s. 64 is our current temperature with light winds outside. Feels like temperature still in the low 60s. Beautiful conditions around the islands today. Absolutely clear skies. We still have some clouds near the southeast Bahamas with an old frontal boundary that's lurking in that neighborhood, but a spectacular evening setting up on the outdoors for you. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, why the AG says Grand Bahama's airport has been a thorn in the side of this administration. Plus, the Speaker laments Parliament's lack of independence. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Attorney General Carl Bethel says ongoing issues at the Grand Bahama International Airport have been vexing for the Minnis administration. He says there were many problems the government had to solve before repairing the airport.
To reinstate on a permanent basis, having regard to the location, you're going to need a berm of at least 10 feet high, to cover the entire airport terminal area and any parking, etc. facilities. In terms of the entirety of the runways will have to be raised, because at spring tide you have flooding over the runways.
Grand Bahama's airport was devastated during the passage of Hurricane Dorian in September 2019. Dissatisfied with the effort shown by the airport's owners to rebuild, the government indicated its plan to purchase the airport at the end of 2019.
And I'm happy to announce that we've reached a point where we are, what they say in law, ad idem, and all points of differences have been resolved, and that the Bahamian people can confidently look forward to moving. And Freeport Airport is one of the 4, as I understand it. So we will start to see immediately the beginning of the investments in the upgrade, repair, reinstatement of facilities.
House Speaker Halson Moultrie again lamenting Parliament's lack of independence from the executive branch of government. He said last evening he's considering contacting the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association on the matter.
I'm wondering if the Speaker have to contact the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association for us to recognize this wrong. I don't see why the IKO had to advise us with respect to the establishment of these authorities.
On several occasions, Moultrie has taken issue with what he calls an oversized cabinet that takes away the authority of the legislative branch. Back in October, he referred to Parliament as a dinghy attached to the mothership. On Wednesday, he said the global pandemic should be a time of purging and change.
There's opportunity in every circumstance. And I believe we should, as leaders in this nation, we should seek to do our best to make certain that these systems that we have inherited function according to their design purpose. And we should cease this practice of permitting personalities to supersede the system.
There's more news coming up, but first, your RF Market Watch.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by Cable Bahamas Business Solutions, the experts for all your business needs. This has been your Financial Market Minute. Cable Bahamas Business Solutions, giving you trusted solutions that work for you and your business. Contact us today.
Still to come, boots on the ground as officers go door to door in Stapleton Gardens, plus Bahamian NBA stars back in action. The details after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our news. Welcome back. The COVID-19 pandemic leading to an increase in crime in the Stapleton Gardens community, according to members of the Neighborhood Watch Committee, who say gas tank theft has seen a sudden increase. Members of the committee and dozens of officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force making their presence felt in the area today, knocking on doors, speaking to residents about their concerns. Committee President Laquelle Johnson says April and May were the highest months for crime in that community, with theft being a common complaint.
COVID happened, and that was a key thing that happened in 2020 in March. We went on shutdown, the country was on lockdown. Jobs started to, of course, persons started to lose their jobs. Maybe persons became very vulnerable for a variety of reasons or factors, variables we don't know, but that was a key thing that happened at that time. And so thereafter we see, April a skyrocket.
Committee Vice President Jewett Smith shares what they've learned about this troubling trend.
You have an old lady who goes to make tea in the morning, who lives by herself, and to find out that she just got her gas tank full 2 days prior, and thereafter, when she turned the stove on, there's no gas, no tank. That there, for me, and for this crime watch, is a problem.
Well, Gerald Investments starting the year off with a generous donation of $25,000 to Reach Out Youth Organization on Grand Bahama. Founder of Reach Out, Dudley Seed, thanked the company for its donation, which will help to fill over 1,000 bags of groceries for residents on that island. Seed said too many families go hungry, and his determination to stomp out hunger comes from his own story of going without food.
I can remember as a little boy, 7 siblings had to share one snack. One had to get the wings, one get the fries, coleslaw, and we had to share one snack. I still can remember days going to bed hungry. So I can understand the pain that a lot of folks are going through right now, and that's why I'll do my endeavor best to continue to give.
Beginning this Saturday and over the next 3 weeks, Reach Out will donate groceries to families in Freeport, West End, Williamstown, and High Rock. Seed says he hopes more companies will join the fight against hunger. Marketing manager of Gerald Investments, Karen Wilson, says they were happy to help the most vulnerable in the community.
During the pandemic, we've noticed that a lot of people was crying about food. The government was trying to help, so we jump on board to assist. We know that a lot of people are hurting in these times during the pandemic, and a lot of people lost their jobs. So the little that we could do would help a lot.
And tonight in sports, both Buddy Hield and DeAndre Ayton back on the court last night, but with mixed results. Marcellus Hall has the highlights.
All right, thanks a lot, and welcome to our Sports on a Thursday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. As you can see, the basketball season is in full effect, and that means our NBA players are taken to the court on an almost nightly basis. Last night, both of them on the floor against their respective opponents. Let's take a look and see exactly how they did. Buddy Hield, the Sacramento Kings, playing much better as of late. Kings taking on the shorthanded Boston Celtics last night. Buddy, 2 key free throws with just 0.6 of a second on the clock. That seals the win. Kings hold on 116-111. Now, Hield would finish the game with 15 points and 11 rebounds in 38 minutes on the floor. His teammate De'Aaron Fox led the scoring charge. He had 26 points, 11 assists, with Harrison Barnes adding 24 and rookie Tyrese Halliburton scoring 21. Kings' next game, in case you're wondering, will be on Saturday versus the Denver Nuggets. Meanwhile, DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns took on the New Orleans Pelicans, 8 and 29 minutes on the floor. He would have another double-double, finished with 13 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. It would be in a losing effort, however, as the Pelicans get the win here, 123-101. Pelicans led by Zion Williamson. He had 28 points. Pelicans, they were led by as many as 28 points in the game. They ended the Suns' winning streak at 3. Phoenix's next game will be on Friday when they take on the Detroit Pistons. And that's your check on sports for you on this Thursday. Don't forget, coming up for you tomorrow evening will be another episode of The Locker Room. So far, things have been going well. We do appreciate your support, your continued support as the season goes on. That's your check on sports. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Well, warmer days may be ahead. Greg has the details after this break.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. It's looking like we may get some warmer temperatures ahead. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the details.
Thanks again, Christina. In our second look at weather, we take a look at our satellite view around the region. High pressure remains in charge, that high allowing winds to fall off and those clouds to disappear. Woke up to some very crisp temperatures this morning. Mid to upper 40s across the Grand Bahama area. Central Bahamas, we saw some mid 50s to upper 50s, and across the southeast Bahamas, 60s there. Frontal boundary still hanging out near the southeast Bahamas. That will wash out, but the high pressure across us will slide towards the east. That will allow our winds to turn more easterly, allowing us for a warming trend into the weekend. Your boating forecast for all areas tonight through tomorrow. Those winds will fall light and variable tonight, but we expect them to become east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots tomorrow. Seas will be running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean, but we still have a caution flag posted for boaters. Those seas will be up to 6 feet in some moderate lingering swells. Your low tide will be at 7:10 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. Now look at your extended forecast through Tuesday. That's a look at our weather. One more night of cool weather expected. Back to Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Well, brides and grooms who planned for a 2020 wedding were forced to postpone, cancel, or transform their big day due to the pandemic. But one event planner is determined to turn what may have been a negative experience into a positive one just in time for Valentine's Day. Weddings of a Lifetime owner Letishka Barr-Carey says she came up with the idea for a treatsa day.
Those who were not able to have that day because of the restrictions, the lockdowns, the amount of persons that could have been invited, the plan is to have a catered lunch, focus on you and your significant other, your best friend, your boy, as we say. Focus on your relationship, focus on that time.
Valentine's Day is usually celebrated the day before Valentine's Day, celebrating friendship and non-romantic relationships. Carrie and event photographer Keith Bryan Jr. say they hope to bring some joy to those who participate.
I would like for them to feel glamored, feel pampered, and feel loved.
You know, persons are going through so much loss, so much pain, and for me to be able to be a part of something that gives persons love, gives persons something to smile about, give persons just a day where they don't have to worry and they could just have like a really amazing day.
If you know someone who should get a treat today, send an essay of no more than 100 words to weddingsofaLifetime@gmail.com by February 7th. A winner will be selected on February 11th. And that does it for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.